about the tactics for Palamco. Headed by McCoy's Mountain Mijar for John Ferguson, Junction 14, Emma Lavelle, Aidan Coleman, Saffron Wells, Neil King, Trevor Whelan, Cadu Doff, tongue-tied for the first time, Charlie Longston, Noel Feely, and Tyros, Sophie Leach, Barry Geraghty booked today. Elle Dancer, Lucy Wadham and Richard Johnson. Hands Up for Detroit, Bernard Llewellyn, Robert Williams claiming 5. Mr. Gray, Ben Case, Daryl Jacob. Palamco, you've heard all about. Imperial Leader likewise. Invicta Lake and Pay the King complete the lineup of 12 here, and Mick and Graham have been casting their beady eyes over this club.
To be a front runner so far. Attractive type, with Daryl Jacob bidding to follow up his win on Gitan de Burlay as they jump away. Back early on, Hands Up for Detroit, and Mr. Gray leads them towards the first of 11 flights, starting off in the back straight here. Mr. Gray from Palamco, Junction 14, close up on the outside. They're followed then by Elle Dancer in a yellow jacket up the inside, Cadu Doff. And Mishar is close with Pay the King in dark blue sleeves. Halfway down the field, Anteros from Imperial Leader, Invicta Lake. The last two, Saffron Wells and Hands Up for Detroit. They cross over outside the chase course to take the next flight of hurdles. Mr. Gray from Palamco, Junction 14 towards the right in the yellow jacket, further right in the Imperial Commander colours, black and white Imperial Leader. Just inside him is Pay the King. Elle Dancer tracks the leaders, yellow with the black chevron. Towards the inside, another grey is Cadu Doff, black jacket worn by AP McCoy aboard Mishar in about 7th or 8th place at the moment from Invicta Lake and Teros. Saffron Wells in the stripes, and Hands Up for Detroit held up at the rear of the field by Robert Williams. Swinging the right-hand turn, the bottom end of the course here, and it's a fair old pull up the home straight here at Sandown. Nearly 4 furlongs climbing, and Mr. Gray from Palamco, Elle Dancer on the far side. Wider is Junction 14, wider still Imperial Leader, then Mishar and Cadu Doff, red sleeves and Teros. Invicta Lake, Saffron Wells and Hands Up for Detroit as they head on towards this next flight. 2 flights in the home straight, and Palamco jumping up to Mr. Gray there as they now move on to the flight in front of the stands with just over a circuit to go. Junction 14 remains close up in 3rd on the outside. Back on the inner, Elle Dancer from Mishar, Pay the King, wide Imperial Leader jumping this one. Palamco almost over jumping. And then in the second half of the field, Cadu Doff, Invicta Lake, Saffron Wells held up, covered up. Then Anteros and Hands Up for Detroit. Well grouped together. Little more than 7 lengths would cover the entire field of 12 as they pass the judge in this Betfred Mobile Heroes Handicap hurdle, and making their way towards the highest point on the racecourse. And Mr. Gray continues to lead the way from Palamco, and Ryan Marn in 2nd. In 3rd is Junction 14 on the outside from Imperial Leader, Pay the King and Mishar. Elle Dancer right round the inner, followed up the inside by Cadu Doff, and then Saffron Wells, Invicta Lake and Teros, Hands Up for Detroit. On the way towards the back straight, downhill now. Quite a long run to the next flight, the first of 4 flights in the back. Mr. Gray from Palamco, a half length between them, Junction 14 3rd, and then Elle Dancer and Mishar. After these is Pay the King, Imperial Leader. Cadu Doff has gone right round the inside, green and white jacket worn by Noel Feely. Further back, Invicta Lake from Saffron Wells, and Teros, Hands Up for Detroit. So on their way to the first of 4 in the back straight on this final lap of the course. Mr. Gray over in front from Palamco and Junction 14 together, 2nd and 3rd, passing their departure point. Then Elle Dancer in 4th. Most of the others are in close company as they jump the next. Mr. Gray taking it well, a bit better than Palamco, who may have just struck the top of that flight in 2nd place. Imperial Leader still there on the outside. Just inside him is Junction 14, who jumped alongside Mr. Gray at that. Palamco, maybe Brian Marn a bit lower in the saddle as they go once again across the chase course in about 3rd or 4th place. Pay the King is handy. El Dancer's going all right up the inside. McCoy hasn't moved a muscle yet on Mishar in the centre. Black colours as they jump the next. Mr. Grey from junction 14, Palamco. Imperial Leader on the extreme right, just inside him, Pay the King. El Dancer up the inner, followed by Kadudov and Mishar. Saffron Wells getting closer. So too Hands Up for Detroit on the outside. Then Invicta Lake and Enteros. So exiting the back straight. Difficult one to call here. Lots of chances. Hands Up for Detroit carried a little wide by the fading Pay the King. It's still Mr. Grey that leads the way to Palamco. Junction 14 has been close up all the way as well. Then El Dancer, Imperial Leader, followed by Hands Up for Detroit on the outside. Invicta Lake is behind these. Then Anteros. Michar's got some work to do now, as has Saffron Wells. Down the home straight, Mr. Grey continues to make it. Junction 14. Then El Dancer, Hands Up for Detroit behind these, and then Kadudov out wide from Invicta Lake. Can Mr. Grey keep it going? As I said earlier, it's such a stiff home straight here. He's going to have to fight all the way. Junction 14 over second. Then El Dancer, Hands Up for Detroit on the far side, followed by Invicta Lake, who's plugging on, and the others are walking on the spot at this stage down towards the last, and they're grouping together. El Dancer, Junction 14, pressing Mr. Grey, coming through in the red cap. Invicta Lake, who might have led there on the far side. Hands Up for Detroit on the run home, and it's Invicta Lake that's taken over from El Dancer second. Mr. Grey's wilting. Then Hands Up for Detroit and Junction 14 up the hill. This punishing climb. Invicta Lake off a lightweight. Tom O'Brien seeing it out best, and Invicta Lake wins. Stayed on so strongly up the hill to beat El Dancer and Hands Up for Detroit fighting it out for second. Then came Mr. Grey, didn't quite get home. Junction 14, Anteros. Further back, Saffron Wells, Kadudov, Michar, Imperial Leader, and well beaten in the end was Palamco. Didn't jump all that well.